Get out. That's how it started. 1 foot in my new front door, a box of chipped mugs in my arms, when a woman in pearls and a clipboard marched up like she owned the county and said it again. Out, I blinked, because who talks like that on a Tuesday? And I said easy as I could, "I'm Evan, just moved in that Cedar Ranch with the green shutters," and she slid a packet into my chest like a ticket and said, "Welcome to Pinecrest Meadows. Initiation dues are $180,000 payable in 30 days. And yeah, I laughed. Then I saw she wasn't joking. Behind me, my wife, Lena. 8 months along, tried to be polite. "Hi there," and this lady Marlene Pierce never even looked at her. Just said, "Sign the covenants in 24 hours, or you're trespassing. This street belongs to us." And I pointed at the little wooden sign at the corner and said, "We're on Shoreline Loop, not Shoreline Lane." And she hit me with, "Don't make me call the authorities." And that's when Lena gasped, soft and awful, and folded against the doorframe, whispering, "It's cramping. Evan, something's wrong." And the mug smashed on the floor, and I ran, because in that moment, nothing mattered but getting my wife and our kid to the hospital. Hours later, the doctor said the baby was okay. Bed rest, no stress, which is like telling a thunderstorm to quiet down. And we drove home, windows cracked, the cove shining dark, and I promised Lena I'd handle the rest. No lifting, no HOA drama, no Marlene. And she squeezed my hand and said, steady as a sergeant, "Bullies get loud. When they're scared, don't let her push you." And I said I wouldn't, even though my stomach was still in my shoes. Next morning, there's a pastel violation taped to our door. Blue painter's tape, like it's friendly. Only. It's not. $100 for a hedge, $200 for parking at a non-compliant angle, $500 for boxes by the curb, a new pastel every sunrise. Each one a little higher, like altitude makes it legal, and I almost admired the creativity. Almost. When I saw Marlene again, she didn't ask about Lena. Just said, "We'll be watching with her linebacker," nephew hovering behind her eyes on the ground. And I smiled, because smiling rattles people who expect fear, and said, respectfully, "I'm not signing anything." And that night, our neighbor Ramon Vega knocked with a 6-pack and a video. "You should see this," he said, and there was Marlene on his phone yelling into her speaker, while I carried Lena to the car. "She's faking, get someone here before they start trouble," and I felt my jaw lock, and Ramon said, "You're not crazy. She does this to everybody. Fined my parents for red lanterns on Chinese New Year, said they were competing cultural imagery. You know what I mean." And I did too well. I climbed into my grandmother's old metal file cabinet, the one that smells like pencils and time, and I found it. Deed, survey the map drawn by a steady hand. My property line ending 9 inches short of the HOA boundary, 9 inches less than a palm. And Shoreline Loop sits outside their covenants like a boat just beyond the no-wake zone. And I wanted to wave that map in Marlene's face, but I heard Lena's voice. Be patient, be smart. So I showed Ramon. Instead, he traced the line, whistled low. 9 inches, man. She's got nothing on you. And by lunch, the barista in town slid my coffee over without a smile. By dinner, a neighbor asked if it was true. The city lawyer was on speed dial, yeah? People who've followed rules their whole lives don't know what to do when the rules turn out to be a costume. Marlene called an emergency meeting at Pinecrest Community Hall. Folding chairs, burnt coffee fluorescent lights. And she strutted to the mic in a coral blazer like she was presiding over the Supreme Court of hydrangeas. A trespasser humiliated this community. He believes he's above our laws. She crowed and held up a page like scripture. So I asked to see it. And she let me because bullies love a performance, and I held it to the light and said, "This says Shoreline Lane. Let that hang a second. We live on Shoreline Loop, and you could feel the room tilt someone in back. Isn't the lane across the highway? Someone else." So, all these fines. And Marlene snatched the paper like it burned. "A typo. Don't be ridiculous. Everyone knows that Cottage is under my authority, and her nephew, Ty, shifted like a man whose conscience had woken up late but loud. She called the police. Real deputies came. Hats in hand, looked at my deed. Checked their laptop, nodded. Looks legitimate. And for a heartbeat, I thought we were done. Lesson learned, applause, roll credits, right? Yeah, that happened. But the movie wasn't over. That night, Ty showed up on my porch, hands buried in his pockets like he was hiding a tremor. "I'm sorry about the hospital. I didn't know she'd call," he said. And he slid a USB onto the mat like a guilty dog. Dropping a chewed shoe and whispered she told me not to look. I looked. "I can't keep doing this," and he disappeared into the dark. I plugged it in at the kitchen table, while Lena slept on the couch, one hand on her belly, and the dog pressed to her knees, and I clicked through file names that made the room go colder. Shoreline Partners, LLC vendor invoices to air dues, funneled into accounts with Marlene's signature. $10,000 for landscaping that never happened. $25,000 for a pool heater that breaks every spring. It wasn't just me, it was everyone. And the twist snapped into place mid-breath. She wasn't a hall monitor with a taste for pastels. She was siphoning the block. We did the next meeting different. Marlene showed up streaming live on a tablet. Transparency, she sang, red light blinking, and I walked up with the USB and said, "Funny. You said that," and plugged into the community projector and let the numbers speak transfers, authorizations. Company names that somehow lived at PO. Boxes kept my voice low. Money. That was supposed to fix sidewalks, repaint the playground, keep the lights on. And a man in a Miracle League hat shouted about his roof assessment. A woman shook a pastel like confetti. "You humiliated my mom over a garden gnome," and Marlene slammed the podium and shrieked, "I built this community. I kept you safe. I deserve every cent." Ty stepped forward into her mic. "Enough. Aunt Marlene, I saw the accounts you told me to shut up and sign. I won't cover for you anymore." And then the sheriff walked in with a warrant, and the room made that sound a metal roof makes when rain finally hits, a rising thunder. And out on the curb, the cruiser door closed, and Marlene kept yelling through the glass. And Ramon lifted the tablet and said, "Too late. Everyone's already seen it." And for the first time in weeks, the air felt lighter. Not clear, but lighter. The week after felt like waking up after a storm. Houses still there, lawns still edged to within an inch of their lives, but the sky different. Half the board resigned in a group text. The other half fought on Facebook about whose initials were on which budget line. Neighbors stopped me at the mailbox. Do we still pay dues? Can we sue? My mom paid for sidewalk repairs that never happened. And I wanted to say, I'm just the guy who carried his wife to the car and read a map. But their eyes were tired and angry, and they needed to hear. You aren't crazy this happened. Lena came home and got a little stronger each day. We sat on the porch at dusk and watched the cove go pink. It looks like the queen lost her crown, she said. And I laughed. But I told her the part I couldn't shake. The USB had a folder I'd ignored. Expansion Phase 2 contracts with names I didn't know. Money flowing in clean lines to Blue Harbor Holdings. 2 counties over, titles like Strategic Growth Director. Notes about harmonizing bylaws across lake communities. Pretty word for control, right? And Lena's mouth thinned. So she wasn't the mastermind. And I said, a loud pawn in a quiet machine. Next morning, there was a white envelope in our mailbox. No return address. 7 words stamped neat like a receipt. Blue Harbor isn't done with you. And that night, a dark SUV rolled down the street and stopped by our driveway. Headlights off, engine low and mean, and I stood on the porch with my arms folded. Because sometimes you have to stand where you live and let whoever's watching know you see them, and the window slid down 2 inches and nothing came out. Just the shape of a person measuring me. And then, Ramon called from across the street. "Got you on camera, buddy." And the SUV rolled off slow. Then fast, and Ty came up the walk with shadows under his eyes and said he used to threaten to call her contact not a boss, a protector. I thought she was bluffing. I don't think she was, and we filed a report, and the deputies promised patrols, and still. You can feel when a problem is bigger than a patrol car. So here's where I leave it tonight. We copied every file to people who can't be bought. The board dissolved, a neighborhood committee grew out of the mess that looks like the actual street. Ramon's mom brought tamales to the first meeting. Lena sleeps with the window open some nights and closed others. And 2 nights after the letter, the SUV came back, stopped without lights. A door cracked. A shoe touched asphalt. And I realized the HOA fight wasn't the end. It was the door. Community versus control. Where do you draw that line, and how many times have you seen somebody dress up? Greed as order and call it safety. You know what I mean? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me if you think I went too far or not far enough. Share your own neighborhood story. The petty, the ugly, the time you stood up, and the time you wish you had. And if you want to see what happens when Blue Harbor tries to turn up the heat, hit subscribe. We're not done. Not by a long shot.